Hello, today I'm going to show you a beginner's guide on how to set up and use Clip Studio Paint. I'm going to mention and explain some settings, tools, and hotkeys that I find to be the most helpful. So for some background information, I am drawing on a MacBook Pro and using a Wacom Intuos Pro Pen and Touch in the medium size. So first is opening a canvas. When you want to open a new paper or a new drawing, you can either hit File, New, or a little easier way is if you see up here on this settings bar, there's this little paper icon that says new. You could hit that. And then here's all your settings for the drawing you want to open. I have mine set in inches. You can set it to pixels if you want, centimeters, millimeters, whichever one works. I usually have mine 11 by 8.5 or 8.5 by 11, the standard paper size. With this little arrow box, you can switch it from vertical to horizontal. I just keep it to horizontal and just hit OK, and your paper shows up. I'm going to be explaining all the tools here, or most of them, and most of the settings here, as well as the layers around in this area down here. So first of all is the brush settings. Here is the pen tool, and if you hover over it says pen, it'll say pencil, and you can also see the hotkey for it. So it's P if you want to hold on to that. And the pen, as in any drawing program, is used for drawing, making your lines, you know how it goes. Right now I have the G pen selected. It just makes rougher lines. And with the pen, like I said, you can just use it to draw. You can change it to marker over here. There's Milli pen, felt pen, things like that. Same thing, use it to draw. Also, when you select a new pen, this little box shows up. Then you can change your brush size, your opacity, your anti-aliasing, which is how jagged or smooth you want your line to come out, and your stabilization. For your brush size, you can see right now I have it at 51 for the G pen. It's usually pretty small. If you make it big, you'll have bigger lines. Opacity is how transparent you want it to be. If it's 100%, then it's totally opaque, but if you change it down to 52, you can see that it's less opaque. It becomes more translucent. For the pencils, it's just a different type of brush settings. You can change it to pastels, crayons. I have mine pretty big right now. Here are the paint brushes. You can use watercolor, oil paint, or India ink. This is the airbrush setting. These are your patterns or kind of special effects type of lines. See, right now I have the waved line, and it goes like that. This is your eraser. Just erases the lines, as you can see. This is the blending tool. It blends or smudges, blurs the lines that you make. This is the flood fill. It's kind of like the paint bucket if you've ever used MS Paint. It just fills every open space that you have with the color that you have selected. So right now I have red, and when I click it, it fills the whole thing with red. This here is the gradient tool. Right now I have it selected from foreground to transparent. It'll create a gradient on your canvas. When it's foreground to transparent, that means it'll start out red and then fade into the background, which is white. You would click and drag on your pen, and there it goes. Right here is another sort of effects tool, but more for shapes. You can see rectangles. This is more special effects like for comics. Whoa, effects lines. And also rulers and boxes if you want to make like a comic book. This is the text tool, and then this is your color picker. Over here are some more settings. This one's to make a new canvas. This one's to open an existing one. This is your save. This is your undo and redo. We all know what those do, but just to show, I did that line right now. Undo, redo. This button clears your entire canvas and makes everything go away. This is flood fill once again. And these are perspective rulers, which is more a little bit advanced. Over on this side, you can see your navigator. We can click and drag to wherever of the canvas you want to see. Here are your zoom ins. Here's the magnifying glass to zoom in. To zoom out, you can also have it in a slider form if you want to be more precise. So say you're super, super, super zoomed in, use the navigator to see where you're trying to be. You go back out. This is your 100%. So here's a line, and this is how big it actually is based on how big you make your canvas in the beginning when you're choosing your settings. Down here is to rotate your canvas. Same thing goes with the slider and with the regular buttons. Turn it around, more precise if you just want to use it. If you don't know how to go back to the original size, you can't get it right back to straight, you could hit this button and it resets your rotation. I'm going to write this, for example. This is to flip your canvas so you can see any mistakes that you make. And this is to flip it upside down if you need a different perspective. Here are your layers. When you first open Clip Studio Paint, compared to Photoshop, Photoshop would just give you this paper layer or your background, but Clip Studio gives you a second one, layer 1. This is because, say, in Photoshop or in this one, if you draw on your paper layer, which here it doesn't let you, it's connected to your background. So if you were to erase on this paper layer, it would give you transparency. Whereas here, if you draw and you erase, it just goes to white. When you want to add a new layer, you can hit this button here, which says new raster layer, or you can have a new vector layer. Just hit it. Or you could right click and hit new layer as well. I didn't name it right there, but it gives you the option to name it right when you hit new layer, or you can double click on it and give it a name like that as well. So the selection part up here is to select parts of your drawing, move it around, cut them around. So for example, I draw just a random squiggle, and here's your lasso tool or your marquee tool. You can have it be polyline, ellipse, rectangle, lasso. I usually pick the lasso so I can have more control. You select it. With the ellipse, you can have it be a circle, rectangle, and when you select something, you get another set of settings over here. They're kind of similar to the ones around, or if you hit edit, and there's a way to change all the edits that you can do on here onto this little bar, so it's a bit easier. You use that with this little box. So for example, when I select it here, I immediately get the option to copy or paste, to flip horizontal, to flip vertical, to cut it, to clear it, move it up, to put flood fill, anything. And if you select the wrong thing, you can just hit this to unselect it. So like I said, with adding edit tools onto this little bar, you would hit this button that says selection launcher settings, and you would hit it. And here are all the buttons that you see up here, all the little options that you have. And you click the drop downs and it's the same thing. And you can select to have any of these options to be added to this little settings bar for when you select something. So for example, if I want to change color of line to drawing onto this, I would just select it. And then over here I would hit add, and then it gives me a new little icon. And you would just hit OK, and then there it is. So say I change my color to black, and I want to change color of line to drawing, there it is, and it does it for me. Similarly, you can just select it and then do the same thing from your edit bar. This is more of a color select, so if I just want to select the reds, here they are, it only gives me the reds. This is your eyedropper to select certain colors. You would hit it and you get red. If you hit it on the black, it hits the black. It's so that you can pick your colors easily instead of going through the slider every single time. So for hotkeys, we can start with the eyedropper actually. This could actually be specific to the type of tablet that I have or the computer that I have. But at least for me, like I said, I have a Wacom Intuos Pro Pen and Touch. With the pen, there's a little button for a right click, and the right click becomes an eyedropper. So say I just have my random pink, and instead of hitting the eyedropper tool every time to select my colors, I can right click on my pen and it does it for me. Similarly with pen shortcuts, if I want to erase, instead of going to the erase tool every time to erase, I can just flip my pen like I would a normal pencil, and erase it like that as well, and it's much easier. There's the standard hotkeys: P for pen, B for brush. I usually stay at pen. There's also Control Z for undo. There's the X tool, which you can use to change colors. Right now I have pink selected. If I hit X, it changes to red. If I hit X again, it changes back to pink. It makes it a lot easier when you're drawing really quickly, or if you're just getting really into it and you don't want to go back and hit it every single time when you're drawing. You can just hit X and it's a lot faster. Similarly to the eraser tool, there's this right here, which is an eraser. It makes sure, the only difference between this and the normal eraser is that using this erase tool, make sure that your eraser has the same texture as your pen. So say you're drawing with really scruffy lines, but your eraser has hard, sharp lines. Instead of fiddling with your eraser tool, you can just hit this button and it'll give you the same texture. Going back to layers, you can also put your layers into folders. So say you're drawing something and you just have so many, you want to categorize them into certain little sections. You can just select the layers that you want, right click, and you get all of these options, and there would be one that says create folder and insert layer. You would hit that one and it puts all those selected layers into one folder. And similarly, just like with the layers, you can name it whatever you want. So I'm going to open up a drawing so we can kind of see everything in practice. Another cool thing that Clip Studio has is that when you hit file, you can open and it shows recent, and it shows all of your recent drawings. You could also save as, save duplicates, and if you see this, which is very cool, you can save it as a JPEG, a PNG, a Clip Studio file, and what I find most interesting is you can save them as Photoshop files. So say you were transporting files to your school or something, and the school computer doesn't have Clip Studio Paint. You could just export it as a Photoshop file and open it up there, and it saves all of your layer information, everything. You could export, same thing, pictures. You could import things, and you can also have your print settings. Anyways, we're going to open up a drawing. So, like right here, I have all my layers into folders. I have one for the background, one for the color, and one for the line art. This shows the visibility of your layers, so if you click the eye, it'll go away, and it'll make everything that is in that folder go away. So you see once I click that, there's no more lines. Same thing for the color, it goes away, background, it goes away. When you open it, you click the little arrow and it opens your folder. You can see all the layers that you have inside. So you can see there's quite a bit of layers. So folders really help with organizing everything. Close it all back up. And like I mentioned before, the 100% tool, this is how big the actual drawing is. It really helps with getting into the finer details. So I want to go to the star, I can just click to where it is. And I can see the little star parts here. Say I want to move on to the eye. There it is, right to the eye. And I can zoom out with the magnifying glass, just like I said. And again, to show some of these tools in progress, in action, say right here on the background, if you can see I have this goop one, and you see there's the goop, I have the pink outline of the goop. Say I want to make it a different color, I select my red, my select tool, select all the goop, and if I want to make it red, how we just added our change color of line to drawing, I can do that, and it changes color. But I have my little yellow gradient on there so you can see that it changes. I also have my transparency affected on this layer. You can see it's 51, so it's not the full red that you see on here. So you just play around with the slider and it goes to any transparency you want, to the full color down to just totally transparent. Boop, look at that, hot rods. Honestly, as for the basics, that's about it. You can definitely get into the nitty-gritty of this program. You can make full-on professional comics. This has a pretty good animation. compartment, I guess you would call it, and why I would choose Clip Studio over something like Photoshop or Procreate or Paint Tool Sai is because with something like Photoshop, that's a subscription service and you have to pay for it monthly. And with Clip Studio, you don't. This one is really geared into comics. They get way more into detail with this type of stuff. They have a really cool animation section, which is a lot more advanced than Photoshop's. You can make some really cool GIFs onto here. I like the default brushes on this program a lot more than say Sai. I think they're a lot nicer. I have not downloaded any brushes as of late. I like the default brushes. I like using them, whereas in Photoshop, I just don't like them. They don't fit my personal preference. And yeah, I just think this is a really neat and powerful program to use. You can do a lot of stuff with it, and it's just really helpful and an awesome tool for artists. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you. I hope this made you decide if you wanted to learn or get Clip Studio Paint. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.